G'day there. You're watching the Aussie Vim Guru. Today I wanted to take just a little break from tutorials and just answer a question I do get quite often, which is my current recording and editing setup. I do have a very simple process. You've probably noticed my videos aren't that complex. I don't put too many special effects in them. I don't have that much time to put towards this. I don't make money from my YouTube channel. I mostly do it just to promote ideas and also to help my brands grow. But I guess currently I'm uploading a video to YouTube right now for my channel, but how do I get to that point? Well, I've had a video in the past where I sort of spoke about my software and my hardware setup, but it's actually changed quite a lot since that video. I've definitely improved it and streamlined the process quite a lot. So right now I'm on a camera facing me, essentially, on a tripod. I'll show it from the other side using my webcam, which is usually where I'm recording from, so I sort of have a two-way recording process now, but we'll just jump onto the webcam and go from there. So now you can see my camera behind me, just trying to position my hands for the webcam. So this is essentially the flip side of what you were seeing before. So my recording setup is very straightforward. When I'm recording, I'm mostly just sharing my screen. I don't tend to hide my taskbar because I like people to see which icons I have open. But really, I'm just using a program called OBS, which I was just starting to use last time I did a similar video like this. Since then, I've really simplified how I use and position my screen. Originally, I used to have a little banner over here that essentially I just don't use anymore. I just show my whole screen so that you see the screen at the proper aspect ratio. I'm recording in 1920 x 1080 HD, which gets just about the right amount of quality that you'd want. And I've just docked a tiny little webcam feed in here, which I can just toggle on and off as I choose. I can turn off my voice, obviously, and I can turn off my screen. OBS is definitely, to me, the easiest to use recording tool. There are other ones like Camtasia that are quite good. I think Camtasia might cost money. OBS is entirely free, so it's definitely up there for me. I know people use it to stream as well, but for me it's just super quick, super easy. And once you've finished recording a video in OBS, you literally just go up here to Remux Recordings, and this will give you the option to just point to a MKV file, which gets converted into a more workable program using a codec. So in this case, I can just remux this and it just turns it into an MP4, which is far more compatible with most of the software that I'm typically using. Now, one really big change I've made since my last update on this is I've started using DaVinci Resolve. I actually stopped using the Adobe Creative Collection entirely. $80 a month was just not worth what I was getting out of it, and I found replacement programs for pretty much everything that I use Adobe for. I can use Adobe Acrobat Reader to look at PDFs. I've lost some of the editing functionality, but not a big loss, to be honest. If I move OBS just off to the side, which will be on my secondary screen, which is my laptop, I don't tend to move OBS mid-recording because it can be very hard to tab it onto an alternative ratio screen. I'm just trying to get it on at the moment. Hopefully that works. There we go. In this case, I'm in DaVinci Resolve. I'm currently using a slightly older version. Now, DaVinci itself is an expensive program, but they have a public beta that has lower features in the version, but I find it gives me pretty much all the editing functionality that Adobe Premiere did, that at least that I used. It also lets you store multiple locations where you store DaVinci projects, which I think is great. They're just stored on what it's calling a server, but essentially it's pointing to a local folder on my computer. All the files you drag and drop in are going to be pathed back to where those files are located, so you are going to want to be careful how you structure your recorded elements. So if you have branding and logos, make sure you put them in somewhere central that you're probably not going to change. And that you're probably going to keep the names the same. Now, I keep all of my Aussie Bim Guru stuff just in a subfolder in one of my servers, and you can see I've got a naming convention of sorts that I use. If I'm going to create a new project, typically I actually begin from one of my old ones that I did a little bit of editing and setup work for. I find it's much faster than doing it all manually myself. So I've got like a whole bunch of elements I would typically stitch in together. For example, let's just take an older project I did. Typically I export it, give it a new name. So for example, I'm just going to call this one testing demo, and this will create a new DRP file on my desktop. In this case, we can see it's here, and then I just re-import it. I find that's an easy way just to duplicate a project with a new name, and there's probably more streamlined ways of doing it, but it gets the job done for me. At that point, I open the project, and at this point, I'm just editing and restitching this project together. So typically, I'll already have a lot of elements inside my standard project. So currently, I'm just on the Deliver section of DaVinci, which allows you to export the entire project as one output. Most of the time, I'm working in the Edit tab. I have my media browser up here, which has all my files I can just drag and drop in, so super simple. As well as that, I have a little intro segment, which I already have, like the Aussie BIM Guru, lead in. I then have like sort of just a little title that I can go and modify the name of the presentation with. So you can see I can just really quickly just change it to, what I want. I usually have this little, swing in text at the start just to introduce me. But from here, let's say I just want to put this all back together. Usually I'll delete. If you're using DaVinci, you want to be careful not to actually hit the delete key, hit the backspace key, because if you hit delete, it like winds back the entire presentation and can really put it out of order if you're not careful. So if I delete that, I've still got my outro sitting over here, and typically I might put some images over the top. Like in this case, I made a little Spider-Man joke, so I put an image of Spider-Man over there, but you're really just working in tracks like you would in any other program. And the audio and the video are typically linked for resources. You can always right click and unlink them. We have a tool like the blade tool, which essentially lets you split up clips into pieces and delete bits and move them around. And each video has a lot of settings. You can modify the audio settings, so often I'll equalize some of the audio. And you can do things like unlink the audio and put it out of sync just for a laugh, so I can really mess up my audio. So sometimes you can do like fun little things like that, but I find it's very quick and easy. The only complicated element I have is a green screen element, which, to be honest, I can barely remember how I made it the first time. I followed a tutorial just to get it to work. I essentially used the visual programming editor inside DaVinci itself to do this. Remember, this is all a free program, so it's pretty strong. But usually I keep that element and I keep this little backing audio behind it. Often, if I have a longer video, I'll take these and just move them a lot further away so that the next track that I put in there doesn't eat up the other part of the video, because DaVinci will sort of overwrite any bits that overlap with a new media source that you add. But typically at that point, this is like my framework presentation that I work with. And then you can just start dragging, dropping, and editing. So typically I'll do things like I'll add the audio channel for channel 1, because I do use a mono stereo output, so I can't just necessarily take the audio as is. Usually it's really loud, so I have to go and balance the audio as well. So typically I'll reduce the volume, I think, to -6 is my standard. I'll equalize the audio, so I'll just reduce a little bit of the lower end of the spectrum, because I have quite a deep voice, so I have to get rid of some of that echo and resonance that comes with that. And then I also just clamp the top just to get rid of a little bit of the hiss of my voice. So there's a tiny bit of work I do there, but really at that point I'm just clipping it to the point where it fits around everything. I'm usually adding some effects as well, so this is the effects editor. You don't get access to all the effects in DaVinci, unfortunately, just because this is the free version, but there's heaps of stuff here that is available. For example, I just use a color border filter just to put a little white border to pop the video a little bit. As well as this, you can do things like additive dissolves, so that things dissolve into each other, like that. So very simple, just drag and drop effects. There's lots of controls on the effects as well, like any program like this. Usually I'll chuck in my middle segment, again, rebalance the audio to a dual channel. Typically I boost this one a little bit because I find that OBS comes out a little bit quieter from these input sources. You can zoom in and out too. I find this is a really easy way to just, finesse the start points. Add transitions, like I might do a push here, for example. So push just, pushes the video aside. So you can see it's super simple. I'm really happy with my setup. It's quick, it's easy, stress-free, hassle-free. And then I can just zoom out. I might just add my outro in this case. That's the last thing I typically would do. So you can see I've got a bit of a workflow here that I follow, that I've just sort of built over time, just to make sure that everything is, standardizable and quick and easy. Because that's really what you want to have as a content creator. You don't want to be doing something different every single time. You want to think as little as possible about your editing process, in my opinion, especially if you're not like a YouTuber who's like, making heaps of money out of YouTube. You're just there to share your knowledge or your ideas. The last thing you really care about is, how overly edited and,
you know, crazily set up your content is. It's really one of the last things you think about. So at that point, I'm just realigning the music, and I can just finish with maybe a dissolve. Sometimes I try to balance out where I start, you know, talking about subscribing. So I might just there, I'll just hit it and then get a snap. You want to be careful. Sometimes sources might follow each other, but at that point, you know, we've pretty much got a full video. I might just put a color border on there as well. And that's it. That's how quick it is for me to just put a new video together. As you saw, you know, pretty lazy. Like, I'm not like, you know, going over the top with editing or anything like that. At that point, I just go to my Deliver tab, browse to where I want to save my project to. Let's just do it to desktop, say testing. Add to my render queue. So you can render multiple videos at once. I don't tend to do it, but you can. Hit render. It's very quick. I've got a pretty good graphics processor on my computer and a good graphics driver, which enables me to use a slightly faster rendering setting. Some people find DaVinci very, very slow when they render a video. So, you know, on average, I find a video like this might take something like 2 or 3 minutes to render out. Sometimes if you have the wrong settings, it can take like 2 hours. So in this case, just definitely do some research on graphics drivers and processors and codecs that you might need to configure in order to get the most efficient output possible from DaVinci itself. But really, after this, I'm just uploading the video itself. So on YouTube, I've just finished uploading a video there, so I'm just going to schedule that one. But YouTube itself, if you've never uploaded the video to YouTube before, it's very simple. You click on the Create Upload Video button, and it's going to ask you to just drag and drop in a resource, which is your video, essentially. So I think it's still exporting in DaVinci. I can see it's about maybe halfway there. There we go. So at that point, you can either select a file or just drag and drop. In this case, I'll probably just I'll just pick a file I already have. So in this case, I'm going to delete this video after anyway. I'll just pick this little intro. So it's going to start uploading the file, usually pretty quick. I find they come out almost too quick sometimes for me to populate all the information. Now I have a default sort of body text that I use, and I really just add like a description. I delete the Dynamo section if I don't have one, or if it's not relevant, and I'll chuck in a video title. I'll add a thumbnail as well. So for thumbnail creation, I used to use Photoshop, and then I found this brilliant web resource called Photopea, which is free and web-based. So this isn't installed on my computer. It's just a web resource that I've essentially, I'm able to launch it off my computer. So I've pretty much freed myself entirely of Adobe. It is a good feeling, you know, saving about, you know, what, like $700 a year just for not using it. And you can see, you'd almost think you're in Photoshop. I don't know how these guys didn't get taken down, but I guess that Adobe doesn't own the rights to the UI. Maybe their patent expired or something like that, but it's really the same thing, layer editing. So I'll start from a standard thumbnail. Usually I'll just start with a copy of another one, and I have all sorts of layers I can toggle on and off depending on whether I want to look smart or casual or semi-casual. I have little icons there by default just to start building my thumbnail. Once I've got that, I export it, and that's pretty much it. Very simple. Upload my thumbnail. I can pick anything I want. I can pick the playlists that I want to put it in, so maybe it's a Revit tutorial. I'm not going to put it in any for now, because if I do make a video, put it in a playlist and then delete the video, there's like a deleted video in the playlist, which you might have spotted sometimes. From there, you just have to tell YouTube that no, I'm not really targeting kids with my BIM videos. And then you can add tags. So by default, I have a lot of like generic tags. I don't actually go that overboard with tagging. I also have a few hashtags in the bottom of my post, which allows these to be associated to the hashtags. You have a limit of 3 on YouTube. So in this case, I typically use Revit Dynamo BIM. It just depends on what topic I'm covering, but in most cases, Revit Dynamo BIM is the 3 that I'm targeting. From there, we can jump forward. We can add subtitles. I just let YouTube do its automatic CC. It's closed captions, and then you can import an end screen as well. So typically I got one end screen right, and I just kept reusing it. So I just go to another video, import the end screen, and I've lined up my the timing on my end screen. I don't actually have an end screen on the video I uploaded, but typically my end screen is synchronized to the second with this actual portion of the end screen itself. So I can pick different playlists if I want to from my channel, if I want to pick something that's more appropriate. It's very, very straightforward. So from there, I just save my end screen. They've added checks now, so if you have a copyright strike, it'll warn you before you make the video, which is great. But otherwise from there, I'm just probably scheduling the video. When do I want to upload it? Which time zone am I uploading in? So I always pick Sydney. And that's it. From there, we schedule it and it's processed, all the checks are complete, and there it is. So it's very simple. Typically, it's probably the quickest workflow that I've ever had so far. So hopefully this gives people a workflow that they can use in order to effectively manage their upload and editing process.
So hopefully that was a helpful video for people looking to do their own recording setup. I don't go all in with like green screens and lots of other things I know people use when they really want to go hard on the recording scene. But it's a very cheap, effective setup. The software especially, very cheap, most of it free. So hopefully this helps you potentially record your own similar tutorials as well. Anyway, I'll be back with more tutorials next time. But if you're not already following and subscribing, feel free to do so. And I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Thanks. Take care.